Hi everyone. Okay, so Y&R is really there's a lot of storylines, so I'm gonna get to it. Okay. So we have Jack and Diane talking about how frosted eyeshadow is coming back. And the reason why I mentioned Diane is because um well, I like people in color in their clothing and I feel like they trick us from time to time because you're supposed to remember Diane as a bad person or something, okay? And they do this by putting her always in black, always. And so it's a miracle when they put her in something colored. And so she's back in black again. Although she hasn't been really bad for a while, so I don't know. Okay. So another storyline with Jack in it is that he's trying to convince Kane to give him the software for that program so he can do away with it so that there's still going to be businesses in Genoa City, right? Well, he tried his best himself and he didn't get anything. So he thinks and hopes that Jill will. Um, Jill had a conversation with Kane, and at first she didn't believe him, but then he got her to his side, right? Okay. Then after that, Lily happened to come over because somehow she found out about the article put out by Adam on Newman Media. So then, and we actually begin the episode with Chelsea and Adam talking about the article and the fact that they had to put it out. And somebody said, "Do you think it's a good idea?" And they said, "Well, we have to put it out." So yeah, and Nick was the guy who said that. Um, Nick didn't even want to be there. He said, "For some reason, I have to stay here and do whatever, but I don't really want to be here." I'm like, okay, okay. So we have that. Then we go on to the meet up today. Honestly, I think. Well, there were two meaty points. I'll get to them. Okay. So, um, Phyllis is talking to her son Daniel about his relationship with Tessa. Although it's interesting because they're really not in a relationship yet. They're friends, and that's what Daniel says. We're friends. I want the best for her because we're friends. And Phyllis says, "No, no, I've seen you when you talk about her when she's in the room. You want her to be with you and not with someone else. And there's nothing worse than unrequited love." And she goes on and on and on. And then he says, "Oh, so dad ratted me out." He's talking about Danny. And then further on, Phyllis said, "I didn't even talk to your dad. I was just putting you on. But you just told me how you really feel about it." So then he finally says, "I can take care of it." And then that's the end of the storyline for now. Then after, okay, I have to jump back because the other part where there was some anger is when Lily came on to the train or whatever and was yelling at Kane again about how dare you, you want our kids to love their grandfather, but their grandfather was um, I don't know, like a thief who took advantage of people, yada, 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 yada. And she reads him the riot act, right? And so he finally gives up. But you would think it would be more interesting to see that, but it's really not because it's like a man who had belief in that he could win the girl or the woman back. And he's finally given up and said, "Okay, that's it. there's nothing else I can do. And it's just like, man, he just totally gave up. Like in 5 seconds flat, he gave up. And then she storms off. And then she goes to, I guess, Crimson Lights, where Daniel and Phyllis are still sitting there. And so they say, "How are you doing?" And she says, "Well, I'm okay if you consider raging mad, okay." And they're like, "Whoa, what are you talking about?" And then she tells them about the article in the media. Then she says to Phyllis, "I'm mad at you too because you're the reason he's still here and won't go away." And she's like, "What would I do?" And she says, and Lily says, "You're his biggest cheerleader. That's why he's still here and he won't leave." So clearly, Lily wants Kane to leave. And then, and then Jill was the one who said, "Okay, so you're not doing real good right now, but you can turn it around." And then that's when you see the moxie come out of her. And she's like, "You can turn it around. Don't give up." But I don't know if Kane's going to listen to her or not. I don't know. So, yep. Yep. That was it today. But it's a lot. I really think that Daniel is going to go for Tessa, even though he knows kind of, I guess he shouldn't. But see, I'm having trouble with it because I feel like Mariah gave up before anybody else did. And then Tessa tried to hold on to it and tried to plead and beg and whatever for it, and she still said no. So at what point do you give up? Okay. I think that that point is going to come for Tessa because even though she still loves her and probably always will, when you have tried and tried and tried and tried, at a certain point you give up and you just move on. And it's not because you don't love the person, it's just you got to move on with your life. I mean, it's the way it goes. Plus, the way they're going to write it is, well, Mariah is not even there. Mariah is supposedly in Boston, okay? So, why would they write a situation where she's going to come back? Clearly, she's not coming back for a while. And we found that out a couple weeks ago when she said, "I got to go somewhere for extensive therapy, and I don't know how long it's going to take." She literally said that. So I'm like, okay, she's going to be off for a while. So, yeah. Okay, that's it. Bye, everybody.